Hello and thanks for joining us for today's video. But just before we start, we want to say a big thank you to our subscribers. We recently got over 100,000 subscribers and we got our plaque for meeting that milestone. We can't tell you how much this means to us. We love that we get to work on this channel, and it's all thanks to subscribers and viewers like you. We literally would not be able to do this without you. So thank you, and we promise to keep bringing you more high quality videos in the future. Number 3. Reichstein Castle. The Reichstein Castle is near Reichstein, Germany, and was built in the early 1300s. Before the castle was constructed, it was a church property under the Imperial Abbey of Kornlandmünster. In the early 1200s, it was farmed out to bailiff Philip von Hohenfels. Eventually, the bailiff became a robber knight, which is a fief who charges tolls and raises taxes even though they are not entitled to do so. Philip targeted merchant ships that used the Rhine River. The Archbishop of Mainz did not approve of Philip's actions, so he raised an army and ordered them to destroy the castle and execute him. After his home was destroyed, Philip convinced the Archbishop that he would become a better man and live a crime-free life. The Archbishop spared his life. Philip rebuilt his castle on the property and then promptly returned to a life of crime. He died in 1220 and his son Dietrich von Hohenfels took over as a robber knight. The Emperor Rudolf von Habsburg was elected to power in 1273 and was determined to get the robber knights out of their castles. In 1282, the Emperor's army invaded the castle. Dietrich had 9 sons, and Emperor Habsburg wanted them punished as an example to other robber knights and anyone who considered becoming one. But the invaders gave Dietrich a chance to save his sons. The sons were placed in line. The invaders told Dietrich if he could walk in front of all of his sons without his head, then they wouldn't be executed. Supposedly, after Dietrich was beheaded, his body walked past his 9 sons and then collapsed. All the sons were pardoned because of his final act, but the castle was destroyed again. A new castle was constructed in the early 1300s. That's the castle you see today, and it was restored in the 19th century. People who visit the castle often feel that they're not alone. They hear doors moving and windows opening and closing without anyone around them. Many believe it's Dietrich's ghost still wandering around. Other ghostly encounters include seeing a gray figure floating up the stairs, and others have seen an orb in a picture. Some people have heard a woman's singing voice in the stairwell when no one's around. Motion detector lights turn on even though no one is there. The current owner, Cornelia Hescher, says she does not believe in ghosts. She's lived in the castle for a while, and she's become used to its sounds and feelings. Although she does not believe in ghosts, she has had some unusual experiences. She said that when she first moved in, she felt like someone was behind her, even though no one was there. Another time, she hosted a party in the Knight's Hall. After the party, she was speaking with the catering staff, and it sounded like someone was walking in the hall on the floor below, but she knew that no one was on that floor. With the history of the castle and its destruction, beheadings and robbings, it's no wonder that it's an unsettled place. Number 2. Pomeroy Castle. In 1066, the Normans from Normandy, which is in modern-day northern France, invaded and conquered England. After the invasion, the Norman king, William the Conqueror, gave the land where the Pomeroy Castle would eventually be built to one of his knights, Ralph de Pomeroy. The family surname eventually became Pomeroy. The Pomeroys constructed a castle and lived on the land for the next 4 centuries. In 1547, the Pomeroy family was in financial distress, so they sold the land to Edward Seymour. Edward was a member of an influential family. 1547 was in an era known as the Tudor period. In January 1547, the King of England, Henry VIII, died. One of the more memorable aspects of King Henry was that he had 6 wives. His third wife, Jane Seymour, gave birth to the king's son and heir. The Queen died days after childbirth. Edward Seymour was Jane's brother. After Edward purchased the land, the castle, which is still there today, was constructed. But he did not own the property long. In 1552, Edward was in prison on trumped-up treason charges. He was executed shortly afterward. The castle was abandoned in 1688 and stayed that way for centuries. In 1977, it was restored by the historic management charity, the English Heritage. The centuries-old castle has its share of ghosts. 2 ghosts that are commonly seen are a pair of brothers. They are on horseback and clad in armor. They were members of the Pomeroy family who lived on the property before it was sold to the Seymours. In the early 1500s, the family's castle was being attacked. It looked like they were going to be defeated. Instead of surrendering, the brothers led the horses to the highest part of the castle. They blindfolded the horses and then mounted them. Then they rode the horses off the castle into a precipice below. They both died because of their injuries. Although the current castle was built after their deaths, people see their ghosts riding up to the rampart and jumping off. People have reported hearing screams and other noises accompanying them. Because of the ghostly appearances of the brothers, that part of the castle is known as Pomeroy's Leap. Another pair of ghosts is the Blue Lady and the White Lady. The Blue Lady was the daughter of a Norman lord. It's said that she became pregnant by her father. She either killed her child or her father killed it after it was born. Her ghost wanders around the castle in sadness over the loss of her child. Some have said she beckons to people. If people follow her calls, though, it's said that they fall to their deaths or they get lost. The White Lady is believed to be Margaret Pomeroy. She had a sister, Eleanor. Eleanor was envious of Margaret's beauty. Eleanor was driven mad by her jealousy, and she imprisoned Margaret. Margaret ended up starving to death. Margaret's ghost haunts the dungeons and even waves at people who walk by. Unlike the Blue Lady, she doesn't try to get them lost or dead. Along with the ghostly settings, people have reported seeing mysterious lights in the castle, hearing voices, and feeling cold spots. Number 1. Leap Castle. Leap Castle is less than 4 miles north of Rosaria, Ireland. It was built by the O'Bannon family in 1250 for the O'Carroll clan. Over the centuries, the castle survived several attempted takeovers by other clans. In the 1600s, the Darby family became owners of the castle through marriage. An O'Carroll daughter married an English captain from the Darby family. They had a son named Jonathan Darby. Jonathan hid his treasures throughout the property during the English Civil War, which started in 1642. He got 2 servants to help him. Once everything was hidden, Jonathan killed the 2 servants so they could never reveal the location of the treasure to anyone. Not long afterward, Jonathan went to prison for treason. When he was released, he discovered a lot of work had been done on the property while he was gone, and he couldn't find the treasure. It's supposedly still hidden on the property. Jump ahead to the 20th century. In July 1922, during the Irish Civil War, the castle was set on fire. The arsonists were never identified, but it's believed that the IRA had a hand in it. At the time, the Darby family wasn't living in the castle. Months earlier, they had received death threats, and someone fired a gun at the castle. Farmers who worked and lived on the land were angry because the family had raised the rent. After the fire, the castle was left in ruins, and the Darbys never returned. At some point, a disturbing discovery was made at the castle. Some sources say it was discovered while Mildred Darby lived there, which was from 1889 to 1922, while others say it was discovered after the fire. Regardless, behind a wall in the chapel, what was found was an oubliette, which is a secret dungeon that people are dropped into via a trapdoor. Under the trapdoor were wooden spikes. The spikes were supposed to mortally wound whoever fell in. Then they would be left in the dungeon to die. Where the spikes didn't work, then they would be left to die of dehydration and starvation. Supposedly, when the dungeon was found, 150 bodies were recovered. With that history, it's not surprising that ghosts roam the castle. One ghost was a member of the O'Carroll clan. After Chieftain Mulrooney O'Carroll died in 1532, there was a competition between two brothers, Thaddeus and Teague, about who would take over. Thaddeus was the older brother, and he was also a priest. One day in 1532, Thaddeus was performing Mass in the castle's chapel. His brother, referred to as One-Eyed Teague O'Carroll, walked into the chapel with his sword and killed him. After the murder, the chapel became known as the Bloody Chapel. Supposedly, Thaddeus's ghost haunts the chapel. People claim that they see a light in the chapel's window at night, even though no one is in there. Thaddeus is not the only ghost. Another ghost, which sounds a lot more terrifying, is the Elemental. Elemental spirits are supposedly driven by emotion and can manipulate the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. There are several theories about how the Elemental came to the castle in the first place. Some believe that before the castle was built, the land was used by Druids as a sacred site. They brought the Elemental there to protect the site. The second theory is that the Earl of Kildare, Gerald Fitzgerald, brought it to the castle. He had tried to take over the castle several times. He also apparently practiced magic. It's believed that he brought the Elemental there in hopes that the castle would catch fire. Another theory is that the ghost is a member of the O'Carroll clan who died of leprosy. In the early 1900s, Mildred Darby was interested in the occult and was practicing it in the castle. It's believed that she awoke the Elemental. She wrote about the experience in 1909. The following is an excerpt from her article that was published in the Journal Occult Review. I was standing in the gallery, looking down at the main floor, when I felt someone put a hand on my shoulder. The thing was about the size of a sheep, thin, gauntling, shadowy. Its face was human, to be more accurate, inhuman. Its lust in its eyes, which seemed half decomposed in black cavities, stared into mine. The horrible smell, 100 times intensified, came up into my face, giving me a deadly nausea. It was the smell of a decomposing corpse. Another ghost of Leap Castle is known as the Red Lady. It's believed it's the ghost of a woman who was kidnapped and raped by the O'Carrolls and subsequently became pregnant. To make matters even sadder and more horrifying, the O'Carrolls continued to torture the woman and they killed her baby. All this was too much for her to bear, and the woman took her own life. People have reported seeing the Red Lady walking around the castle with a dagger. They said that it looks like she's on a mission to maim or kill someone. If you visit Leap Castle, you might also see two little girls playing. They are Emily and Charlotte. They supposedly lived in the castle in the 1600s. Emily died when she was 11, when she fell out of one of the battlements. Most people have reported seeing her ghost fall, but she vanishes before hitting the ground. However, some people have also seen Charlotte dragging Emily, whose legs have been severely broken from the fall. Charlotte is believed to be the ghost of a girl who was about 6 or 7 years old. What's notable about her is that her right leg is turned around nearly backward, and she drags it. Finally, there are the ghosts of the McMahon clan. The O'Carrolls hired 40 of the McMahons to help them in a battle. They were victorious, and the O'Carrolls hosted a dinner. But the O'Carrolls did not want to pay the McMahons. Instead, they murdered them by poisoning them. Their ghosts are seen throughout the castle. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.